everybody knows who the big names are. Everybody knows who's living the good life. Just take a look at who's on the cover of a magazine, who's the most beautiful, who's the most wealthy, who has the fanciest and best recipes, and who is willing to pass it along to you so that you too can have a taste of the good life. Right? Except maybe not quite right. Maybe the things we've been fed and told about who's living the good life, maybe that's not quite what Jesus has to say about the kind of life that matters to God or for the people who belong to the reign of God. Maybe Jesus, in fact, has a way of turning things upside down on us. We're going to hear this coming Sunday these well-known words of Jesus that we call the Beatitudes from a collection of Jesus' teaching, sometimes called the Sermon on the Plain, as Luke tells it to us. It parallels material that Jesus teaches in Matthew's Gospel that we call the Sermon on the Mount. But it starts out like this, from Luke chapter 6, verses 17 and following. He came down with them and stood on a level place, with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. They had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases, and those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. And all in the crowd were trying to touch him, for power came out of him and healed all of them. Then he looked up at his disciples and said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, revile you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets." Jesus has this way of taking what we assumed was right side up and turning it upside down again. Of, in fact, saying that God's ordering of things, even if it feels upside down to the rest of the world, is actually right side up. That God's way, where the hungry are filled, where blessing is announced on the nobodies, and where there is warning for those who are too comfortable and insulated in their wealth and excess and power and privilege, they can't notice the needs of other people. Jesus has a way of taking what we thought was the right order of things and turning it 180 degrees and then showing us it wasn't upside down, we were. We were the ones who've had it upside down all along. It's true still. Go to the magazine rack of your grocery store, Walmart, anywhere, and you'll find all the pictures of the powerful people, the important people, the people worth knowing, the celebrities, and the fanciest recipes, the most expensive things around to be found. They make the cover because they're the glamorous things. They're living the supposedly good life, right? And here Jesus comes along and doesn't even play that game. In fact, teaches his followers that it's a losing game to even try, chasing after what the so-and-so say are so important in life. Jesus introduces us into what sounds to the world like an upside-down order of things. But it turns out God's ways are right side up. We're the ones who've had it all backwards. Jesus' ordering of things, where the last are put first, where the hungry are provided for, where the arrogant proud are deflated and taken down a few pegs, where the wealthy don't get to consistently look out only for their own interests, but where the needs of those with nothing are lifted up. That's the ordering of things. Jesus says, that's what I've come to bring. That's how God's ordering of things works, even if it flies in the face of what the empire in the first century thought, or the magazine rack today thinks, or the powerful voices in the headlines on the news, or the people who make the most money at the list of the end of the stock trading charts at the end of the day say. Jesus brings us into an alternative and upside-down way of living and convinces us his way has been God's ordering of things all along. To live in that life is kind of like learning how to, walk underwater or walk on the moon. It's sort of like a whole new sense of gravity. While the world around thinks this is how things are, we're pointed in a different direction, moving differently than everybody else. To be a part of the community of Jesus is to learn to see the world through a different set of lenses, so to speak. And instead of taking the world's advice for it about who's really important, who we should listen to, who should have the most important positions of power or prestige in the world, we're called to be people who live differently, who live by a different set of values. We're people whose concern is always going to be for the ones the world leaves out and treats like nobodies. The adventure then for you and for me is to step into that day by day by day and to figure out what would it look like? What will it look like? Not to be most interested in who's got the biggest pile of money, who can do the most favors for us, or who's got the most political power or prestige, who has the most abundance of gourmet food, but who are the people in our neighborhood who everybody else has forgotten about? Who are the people in our community who are least made to feel welcome? Who are the people who are new to our area that are waiting to hear that they belong and that they are beloved too? That's where our calling is. We're sent to be in the midst of folks like that. And if we're not, we're falling back into the world's assumption about who matters and who's really blessed. In the ancient world, if you use that word, if you talk about who's living the blessed life, people thought about the gods, the Greek and Romans gods, Zeus and Hera and Apollo, and for that matter, Caesar was considered a god. In all the language of the ancient Greeks and Romans, blessed was the word for the gods and goddesses who lived up on their heavenly mountain and never had to deal with the cares or troubles of life. From time to time would come and dabble with the affairs of mortals just to mess with us, but didn't have to suffer hunger or want or need. They were the gods after all, right? You still sometimes hear us use that language about being blessed when people are trying to look for a polite and maybe religious way of saying that they're wealthy. Oh, we've been so blessed with so much money. Jesus doesn't talk about having a big pile of money as a blessing. He sees the danger in it, that we are so quick to make it into our God, the thing we trust the most, that maybe what's most blessed of all is knowing the people who are empty-handed and know it are the ones who have peace, knowing God's looking out for them. In a way, Jesus' words of blessing on the least likely and of announcing warning and woe on those who were deemed most comfortable, in a way, it's just Jesus growing up as the kid who heard his mom singing the Magnificat, right? About the God who feeds the hungry with good things and sends the rich away empty, who scatters the proud from their thrones and lifts up the lowly and the brokenhearted. Jesus, in that sense, isn't doing anything new from not only what Mary in her song in her pregnancy was saying, or for that matter, the scriptures before in what we call the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible had said all along. The God who lifts up a nation of enslaved Hebrews and Israelites and sets them free and takes Pharaoh down a peg. The God who's always lifting up the nobodies, who has special commands and concern for the people who don't have land of their own, for the widows and the orphans and the foreigners. That God is the one who then comes among us in Jesus and announces once again, blessed are you who are poor, blessed are you who are weary, blessed are you who are mourning, blessed are you who are without, who the world looks over and says you don't matter. Blessed are those who, as Howard Thurman would say it, have their backs against the wall in life. All too often, we've got it backwards, and we assume the people who have a comfortable situation, that's where God's blessing. If things are going well for you, that's a sign you've got God's favor on you. Jesus says that's not how it is. Maybe we're called to something deeper and richer and more meaningful than just magazine counter theology that assumes if you are on the cover of the magazine that you are the most important. Maybe it turns out that's all upside down thinking, and that Jesus has come as the one to put things right, to lift up the ones who've been forgotten, and to say you matter to the living God and to the people of God as well. If you've ever been in one of those places where you're the one with empty hands, where you're the one whose heart is broken, where you're the one feeling like nobody else thinks you matter, there's good news from Jesus on a day like today. And at all those times when we've fallen for magazine rack theology, thinking the people who are on the covers of magazines have it and the rest of us have to aspire to them, Jesus' words are a wake-up call to turn things upside down or discover Jesus has had things right side up, and we're the ones who have to make the 180 shift. Join us on Sunday for that conversation as we dig into the teachings of Jesus and how he's on a mission to set things right side up, not just out in the world, but in our view of things even right now. See you Sunday.